I'm Shirley Paulson, and I invite you into one of the many conversations I've had with Arthur Dewey, the West Star editor of my book, Illuminating the Secret Revelation of John, Catching the Light. The questions that come up from reading both this ancient text and my book about it are both broad and deep. So we turn the spotlight on one of these many thought-provoking topics. Well, thanks, Art. I suppose we figured out a little bit about why you and I have a great conversation every time we get together. But I'm hoping that we can have another conversation that other people might listen to, because we always have so much fun. I think others ought to have fun with this too. And particularly, I want people to get a feel for why this book, this ancient book, is so interesting to people today. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah, good. I hope we can, because in some ways, when you cast your eyes and ears around this globe, it becomes increasingly obvious that we are definitely in deep doo-doo, and we are beset on all sides from various forces. And the real question is, how do you deal with that? And one of the aspects of the secret revelation of John, and one of the aspects of actually much ancient literature, is that these people were actually dealing at this ground level, and maybe even deeper ground, by using what we today call mythic language. So,
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers people have when they try to look at ancient texts. They think, oh, this is just fantasy, and it's just like, I have enough modern fiction today. I don't need to deal with ancient fiction anyway. But you're right. The myth had more to do with the reality of life and making sense out of it rather than making it confusing.
yeah, in some ways, I've been reflecting on this last week or so, because what many people today consider religious or religion has to do with the private sector, has to do with how one feels. But they seem to be at a loss when we're confronted with things beyond our control. And I would point out that at that stage, when humans reach the point of, oh, I'm really in it, I don't know what to do, the ancients would pray. The ancients would use language that we avoid, namely the language of myth. And that's one of the things to consider, that when you're looking at an ancient document and you see some, you might say, crazy images or ways of putting things that you probably wouldn't, what we forget is that these people are dealing with the question of, where is the power? They're feeling something powerful either going against them or in their way. And the way in which ancients handle it is by, in fact, invoking the powers, by naming the powers. So this is something I find interesting, because it says to us moderns, maybe our vocabulary is pretty slim.
I like this thing about expanding our thought rather than trying to get into the narrowness of the antiquity. I think some people look at antiquity and say, well, they just didn't know as much as we know now. So we have to look at them in a very narrow little lens, rather than thinking, well, we might have the narrow lens on us. And we should open up our thoughts a little bit more to what was going on back there. I think that what I like about antiquity too is what you're getting at with the influences or powers or the things that are going on around us. When we feel helpless today, we tend to think it's because somebody else isn't being just, or somebody else is taking away our rights to do something. And I think back then people also didn't have their rights either. I mean, especially people being oppressed with the Roman powers and all that. But I think that they were thinking about powers in a way that made them feel empowered, which is why it's so helpful for us today to think in a way like that. Thanks for joining us and thinking about one of these deeper questions with us as we turned the spotlight on one of the many challenging topics associated with this ancient text. If you haven't read my book yet, Illuminating the Secret Revelation of John, Catching Delight, it's published by Cascade Books and is available from your favorite bookstore or from the website at earlychristiantexts.com/book. And be sure to let me know if you'd like to hear a conversation on some other questions. You can also leave your questions on the website. Again, that's earlychristiantexts.com.